Welcome to Joy Recovery Radio, the place where couples like you can discover healing and hope after sexual infidelity and betrayal trauma. We're here to share insights, strategies, and real-life stories that support both sides of the recovery journey. We're passionate about getting this message of hope and healing to as many couples as possible. The best way you can help us do that is by engaging with our podcast. Please take a moment to follow us on Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Liking our episodes and leaving a 5-star review also makes a huge difference, helping others find our community when they need it most. Let's dive into today's episode.
Well, I'm glad to be back on another episode of Joy Recovery Radio.
Yeah, it's always great to do these together. Glad you're here.
Thanks. For a moment of gratitude, I want to start with saying that it's the small things that matter, especially when building a new coupleship. So we had an in-night date night where we stayed at home and vegged out on crime TV shows and ordered in takeout. And so it was really nice.
It was, and we both recognized that we needed some time together, and I appreciate you checking in advance those episodes and making sure they were safe, and neither one of us were triggered, no temptation, and it was a fun night.
It was. It's a good night. So I love being here and sharing a little bit of insight about our relationship, especially when we're diving into topics as crucial as this one. You know, we've walked a long road, both individually and together, through the wilderness of sex addiction and betrayal trauma. It's been several years now since we've committed to this recovery journey. And looking back, it's incredible to see how far we've come. It really is. Like, sometimes knowing all the things that we did wrong, to go back and to look at that and realize how we ended up here is pretty miraculous.
It really is, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today in this episode. We have had so many conversations with couples who are reeling from the devastation of infidelity. Most of them, they feel hopeless, they feel lost. Many of them believe that their relationship can't be repaired. But we're here to tell you, from our own lived experience and from working with many other couples, healing really is possible.
Over these past years, we've identified what we believe are the 10 key traits of couples who don't just survive infidelity, but actually thrive and build a stronger, more resilient relationship than they ever thought possible. Roy and I have brainstormed and went back and forth, scratched out stuff, erased it, added things. These are the top 10 things at the end of the day that we think are most crucial. They're just not theoretical ideas. These are the non-negotiables, the must-haves that we've seen consistently lead to lasting healing and renewed connection. We recognize that these are the 10 key traits that we believe are the must-haves. But like everything in recovery, you take what works and you leave what doesn't.
So maybe a helpful analogy is to think of these 10 traits as foundational pillars for rebuilding your house after a devastating storm like infidelity. Yeah, you could try to patch things up, but without really strong pillars, the whole structure is still shaky. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep dive into each one of these 10 pillars. We're going to share some of our own insights, some of our own struggles, even some of our own failures, and our successes along the way. Our hope is that by the end of this episode, you feel like you have encouragement, a roadmap, and a renewed belief in your ability to heal.
Again, healing is completely possible, both individually and together. So to kick us off with number 1, and this is probably one of the main, healing is possible, both individually and together. To kick us off, we're going to start with one of the most crucial yet painful, but absolutely essential steps. And that is a full disclosure and establishing safeguards. Do you remember how terrifying this was for both of us?
Oh, absolutely. Big time.
I think for you, it was the fear of judgment and further rejection in the midst of all the shame that you were dealing with. And definitely for me, it was hearing even more painful truths and giving new meaning to my worst fears.
Yeah, it really felt like walking into a fire. But I have to say, without that full, honest disclosure, I didn't see a way that I could ever rebuild trust with you. It's like trying to build a house on quicksand. For me, what it meant was to finally lay out in the open every secret, every lie, every hidden behavior. It wasn't just about the quote unquote big acts of infidelity. It was also a lot of smaller deceptions. There were omissions, many various ways that I'd been living a double life.
And for me, one aspect was for certain the fear of the unknown. What didn't I know when I thought that I knew so much already? In addition to that, it was finally being able to understand the scope of the deception. It's not about gathering ammunition to punish, though it certainly feels that way at the moment. It's about getting all the cards on the table so you can actually deal with reality. So imagine you're in a dark room and you keep stubbing your toe. Disclosure is like flipping on the light switch. It might be jarring, but you can now actually see where everything is. And like most therapists say, you've got to know what to heal from in order to heal. Some folks don't want a disclosure, and we respect that. But for us, this was a critical step.
And it's not a one-time event. It's not like you do a disclosure and you don't have to be transparent anymore. And everything is safe and everything is perfect. Disclosure led us directly into establishing safeguards right away. So for us, that looked like putting cameras in every room, GPS tracker in my car, closing out all social media, and just an overall commitment to radical, or I like to use the word ridiculous transparency in all things, giving you the granularity of what you want to know. No longer deciding to be the gatekeeper of information. No longer deciding that I'm going to decide for you what you should and should not know or what you can and cannot handle, but letting go of that control and being completely transparent with you. And, you know, giving up some of my freedoms initially was tough, but I had to remind myself this is not punishment. I'm not the victim here. This is about rebuilding a sense of safety and trust. It's like putting up a really strong fence around your property because there's been an intruder. And that fence is not just about keeping the intruder out, but it's also about the sense of security for those of us who are still living in the house. Those are safeguards.
Exactly. It's a tangible demonstration of commitment from the addict and for the betrayed partner. It provides a much needed sense of security. It allows your nervous system to start to calm down, knowing that there's concrete measures in place to prevent future betrayal. It's not just, I promise I won't do it again. It's, here's how I'm making sure I don't. And here's how you can see that I'm not going to hurt you again. And lastly, I want to say, if you are in the midst of doing a disclosure, you need to know that from discovery till the actual disclosure, you need to know that from discovery until the completion of the disclosure, she is in a very hyper vigilant state. I certainly was. So if you're sitting on a disclosure and you're not making it a priority, you're making a big mistake in your coupleship.
So our second key trait is paramount. We recommend rebuking all forms of acting out and eradicating all forms of lust and objectification that many guys end up putting in their middle circle.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just about stopping what is obviously sexual behavior. It's really about a complete paradigm shift in how we addicts view everything, how we view ourselves, how we view other people, how we view our recovery.
Man, this was a big one for us. For so long, we focused on the obvious external behaviors, but what we've learned, and that is so critical for true healing, is that the addiction lives in the mind.
That's right. For me, it meant recognizing that lust and objectification even if they did not lead to physically acting out. They were still acts of betrayal towards you in my mind. They were still betraying our relationship. It was still betraying my commitment to you. It's kind of like a weed. You can cut off the top, but if you don't dig out the roots, it's going to grow back. What I realized from my own addictive behavior was that lust was the root of every form of acting out. That if I pulled out the root of lust, there would be no acting out.
And for the betrayed partners, seeing that commitment to internal sobriety is incredibly powerful. It shows that the addict just isn't trying to avoid consequences, but that they're truly doing the deep work, the transformative work. It's recognizing that all forms of lust and objectification can be incredibly damaging to intimacy.
Absolutely. For me, it was about cultivating a mindset where I began to see other people as whole human beings, not just as objects for my own personal gratification. So it required a lot of effort. It required deeper self-awareness. It required a willingness to challenge deeply ingrained thought patterns that I had had my whole life. For me, it was about making the choice to deliberately, immediately, without delay, bouncing my eyes, anytime and every time there was a temptation, and to covertly pray for that person instead of covertly using that person. And the good news is, thanks to neuroplasticity and the repetition of that practice for years now, it has become a new neural pathway for me. It's a new habit. It's the new default behavior when I feel tempted.
I do want to provide just one disclaimer that it can be really difficult for the betrayed partner to understand the level of objectification and lust that the addict has been doing for so long. I knew that was, for me, that was definitely a hurdle for me to understand and comprehend. So moving on to number 3, must build a new relationship from the ground up. You must take time to plan dates and build a friendship. Friendship first, right? It's just like a courtship when you first started dating. This step is so vital. This isn't just about patching up the old broken relationship. That old relationship was built on a foundation of secret and lies. You need a new one.
You know, one thing I often hear from the guys that I work with is, can't we just go back to the way things were?
Mm,
And here's the honest and difficult truth. No, you can't. And do you really want to?
no.
You know, there's a powerful verse in the Bible. It's found in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and it speaks to this very idea that we're talking about. It says essentially this: you can't put new wine into old wineskins. If you do, the old skins will burst, but both the wine and the wineskins will be ruined. So let's unpack that. An old wineskin is rigid. It's already been stretched because of the prior fermentation process. And so it's conformed to the shape of the previous contents. It's not flexible. It's not going to accommodate another round of fermentation and the expansion of a brand new wine that you pour into the container. So it's going to tear, it's going to spill, and everything will be lost. In the same way, the old relationship that you and I had, the one that existed before the infidelity, before the betrayal, before the secret basement was exposed, it is now fundamentally changed.
It's not about trying to squeeze new life into a broken vessel. Instead, you have to build a brand new relationship from the ground up. This new relationship requires new foundation, new boundaries, new levels of honesty like you've never known, and a complete understanding of what trust and commitment truly mean between you.
Yeah, it's a reimagining of the whole relationship. It's not enough to repair it. It's a difficult journey, absolutely. We've had some hard times, and there will be future hard times. But we needed to embrace the truth that we need a new relationship. And that is a crucial first step towards genuine healing and the possibility of a healthy future together.
I'm going to be honest, it felt awkward at first. Don't you agree?
Oh, yeah, it was. It's completely new.
It's really hard not to bring the baggage from the old relationship into the new. And I had to create some self barriers so I didn't do that. In addition, we had to relearn how to just be with each other. without the weight of the past constantly looming. We started intentionally planning dates, the simple things like going for a walk, sitting and talking without any agenda. I took up painting by numbers, and that would be a time for you to read scripture to me. It was about creating new positive memories. Another thing that we incorporated was you would share insight from recovery readings or books that you had read with me. And that brought a lot of togetherness. It was something new that we had never done before. And now it's one of my favorite things.
Yeah. So in a very real way, with D-Day, the house of our relationship was completely leveled,
Yeah.
just scorched earth. But this is a brand new start. The old house is gone. We can't get it back. But now we have an opportunity to architect and design something even better, something that really reflects who we are now and who we want to be in the future. So we realized a key part of that new design of our new relationship house was our friendship. Because for so long, our relationship was defined by addiction and by trauma. And we lost sight of the fun and the laughter and the simple joy of just being together.
So we consciously started cultivating that friendship again. Now, I'm not saying forgive and forget the past, not at all, but focus on the future as friends and work through the hard moments as you would with a close friend. It's those consistent small acts of connection that weave the fabric of a strong friendship. It's about remembering why you liked each other in the first place and then falling in love with the person your partner is becoming in recovery. You're still going to have moments of being hypervigilant. The pain is still going to be there. But the way that you look at it differently. Your partner is there to be by your side, to be a safe container, not to listen, to defend, but listen to understand as if a friend would.
So that leads us to our fourth point. We're talking about top 10 must-haves if you're going to save your relationship. And here's number 4. And it builds directly on the previous one we just talked about. That is a commitment to communication, even when the conversations are hard. And there's a lot of hard conversations to have. One of the things that I appreciate, we had a lot of mantras when we restarted our relationship. And one that we have held on to that was foundational is a new definition of infidelity. It wasn't just physically cheating. Infidelity was the keeping of any secret. And so this became a non-negotiable for the healing of our relationship.
This one was a tough one for me, especially in the beginning, because I was so used to you holding things in and then finding out later about the truth. It felt like every secret, no matter how small, was another stab. And for you, I imagine it was hard to break the habit of hiding and lying. We have a story that we often tell about a meatball.
Oh, not the meatball story.
The meatball.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good example.
It's so ridiculous.
Oh my gosh.
But it made so much sense, and it makes so much sense now. We had takeout and we ordered spaghetti and meatballs, and I went to go heat up the leftovers, and there was only spaghetti and marinara. The meatballs were gone. And I asked Roy, I was like, did you eat the meatball? And you said,
No, I didn't eat the meatball.
I knew he had, because no one else could have eaten it. But he looked at me and lied and said that he did not eat it. We had this 24-hour rule, and we still have it. If there's something that you've done, you've got 24 hours to come clean. And it was like the 11th hour. And he comes and he says, I ate the meatball. And I'm looking at him like, I already knew that. And this is so ridiculous that you lied about eating a meatball.
It was a habit. It was a strong habit. It was a habit by decades of repetition. But it's not a habit that can't be unlearned. My addiction thrived in secrecy. It was my comfort zone. My addiction, the secret sexual basement, that was my hiding place. That's where I went to escape from any discomfort, any pain, anything unpleasant. But I learned that every time I chose to keep something from you, even if it felt insignificant to me, I was recreating betrayal for you. And I was reinforcing that same pattern. It's like a tiny crack in a dam. You might think it's nothing, but over time, if you don't address it, that tiny crack can lead to a catastrophic collapse.
And for the betrayed partner, it's about creating safe space of communication. It's hard because your instinct might be to react with anger or fear based on your survival response. Mine is fight, Rory's is flight. We'll definitely go into survival mode. But if you want your partner to open up, you have to try and meet them with curiosity, even when it's painful to hear. It doesn't mean you're condoning the behavior, but it means you're creating an environment where honesty is rewarded and not punished.
So another daily practice that we started was regular check-ins, and we've got a podcast episode on that people can do a deeper dive in. But basically, it's where we would talk about what was going on internally, what were we struggling with, what were we grateful for. It was a daily practice of tearing down those walls of secrecy, just brick by brick, one step at a time, baby steps. And I learned that transparency wasn't just about not hiding big things from you. It was about inviting you into my entire life. It was showing you the good, the bad, the ugly, things that I normally would not be transparent about. Because even when you hide the small things, you're basically saying, you can't handle the real me. Therefore, you don't know the real me. And there's still distance between us.
We, like you mentioned before, we had a lot of these phrases that we would lean into. But one that sticks out was, I can handle the truth, but I cannot handle another lie. And one lie can ruin every truth told. Okay, number 5.
Halfway there.
Daily acts of care that show you still matter to me. Let her see and feel that you choose her over everyone and everything. This is truly where the rubber meets the road. As a betrayed partner, I needed to see that you chose me over everyone and everything. It's intentional acts. Because if we're honest, during the period of your addiction, your active addiction, you never chose me. You chose your addiction over me. I need you to fight for this relationship in ways that you haven't ever fought before. It can be a letter. You write me a letter. It can be a random act of kindness. I would say words, but if words aren't followed by action, those don't mean anything. It's so important that we feel like we matter. Choose me. At the end of the day, just choose me.
My addiction was my higher power. I made it a God. It was my top priority. It was my true north. It took more precedence than my values. I chose it over you. I chose it over my faith. I chose it over my family. I chose it over my career. I chose my addiction over everything. So for me, recovery meant I needed to consciously, consistently, visibly choose you over everything, and choose you every time.
And this is going to sound crazy, but there were times when I told you, just leave. Do you remember that?
Oh, you're talking about in the early days?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, just leave.
Yeah.
Just leave. Just leave me alone. In hindsight, did I want you to leave? No, I didn't. I wanted you to fight to stay. And even though I'm saying leave, my heart is saying, please show me that you care. Please show me that you care, and stand up and say, I'm not leaving. I love you. I want to make this better. I'm fighting for us. It's about filling the void that addiction has created with connection and love. It was the little things like bringing me coffee in the morning and asking me about my day and truly listening, sending me those funny text messages to say, I'm thinking about you, or making sure that you carve out time for us, even when life got busy. And I don't always thank you for that, but I am truly grateful.
I appreciate you saying that. In a very real way, an image that helps me is an image of a garden, that our relationship is a garden.
Oh gosh.
And we're horrible physically at gardening,
Yeah,
but it's a helpful metaphor. It's a helpful metaphor.
maybe a cactus garden.
But when it comes to, I love gardens, but I hate gardening, if you get what I mean. I want someone else to tend the garden and I'll just enjoy the beauty of it. But our relationship is a garden that I have to tend. I have to be the gardener. So it's not enough to simply stop neglecting the garden. I have to actively nurture it every day. Every day, I got to pull the weeds. Every day, I've got to fertilize it. Every day, I've got to water the plants. I've got to tend to it every day. Neglect is going to lead to a horrible garden. So these daily acts of care, the acts of service that I do towards you and making you a priority, that's the water. That's the sunlight for our relationship. It's about making sure you feel cherished. It's about seeing you, truly seeing you for the gift and the treasure that you are in my life, and proving to you without a shadow of doubt, you are the number one top human relationship in my life.
I'm laughing internally because if you guys saw our yard, it's filled with fake flowers.
Like I said, we suck at gardening, but we love gardens.
We do. So funny. For the betrayed partner, you have to be open to receiving these acts of care. Listen, it can be hard to let your guard down, especially after being hurt so deeply. But allowing yourself to feel chosen again, even in the small ways, is a crucial part of your own healing.
At joy-recovery.com, we offer personalized recovery coaching to help you move from pain to purpose. We also provide supportive groups where you can connect with others who truly understand. So, whether you're battling addiction, healing from betrayal, or rebuilding a brand new relationship, you're not alone. We can help. Go to joy-recovery.com today.
Number 6. This one is about vision. It's about intentionality. The way we decided to word it was, I like this phrase, be wildly desperate about building your ideal relationship. Make plans for the future. Be future oriented. This isn't about toxic positivity. That's not what I'm talking about here. It's not about wishing. It's not about hoping. It's about this active, almost relentless pursuit of the relationship that you and I both dream of.
Okay, I'm going to replace wildly with extreme desperate. There's too much wild in this house with the dogs and the kids.
Okay, so extreme desperation to build our future ideal relationship.
I like that
Okay,
better.
all right.
Extreme desperation is really important after infidelity. It's easy to get stuck in the past and to dwell on what happened. But for some of us, true healing requires us to shift our focus onto what we can build.
And just a word to the guys, your partners know what desperation looks like. It's how you won her in the first place. You demonstrated desperation. You would drive 5 hours so you could give her a hug. That was the kind of desperation you had. You would write love letters. That's the kind of desperation you had. You have forgotten in many ways your first love, and she wants you to cultivate that. She has seen desperation in you. Now more than ever, she needs to see that desperation towards building the future that both of you want. For me, this required a lot of visualizing. What does our ideal relationship look like 5 years from now? What does our communication look like? How do we spend our time? How do we spend our money? What kind of emotional connection could we possibly have? And then it was about taking concrete steps towards that vision, that ideal that we had.
You know what's interesting is that when we first started dating, you were pursuing me in a way that you wanted me to fall in love with the idea, the person that you wanted me to think that you were, versus the person that you are at your core. And today, I get to fall in love with the true you. I get to know all of your secret things that you hid, and I still choose you. So it's a different type of learning to love. Allow her to see you and love the real you and not the person that you portrayed yourself to be, because that's not who you are.
Hmm.
We started talking about our future, and not just in vague terms, but in specifics. We planned trips. We talked about our goals for our family, our careers, our spiritual life. This wasn't about ignoring the plan of the past, but saying, despite everything, we believe in a future together and we're willing to fight for it.
That was a tender moment for me, what you just said,
I
that
can tell.
that fully knowing me, yet fully accepting me. That's why I think we started this list with a full disclosure. Because
Yes.
here's what I noticed. There was about, let's say 20%. I don't know what the number is. There's about 20% of my past that I hid from you and I swore I would never tell you. It was the things that I was most ashamed of. And I thought I would take it to my grave. But here's what else I noticed. I could not fully accept your full acceptance of me because in the back of my mind, this is the self-talk. If she only knew blank, she wouldn't accept me. And it wasn't until I put everything out there and you forgave me. And not only did you forgive me, you chose me and you fully accepted me despite all my integrity issues. That was healing like I've never known. That was acceptance on a whole nother level. The confession towards God, I felt that cleansing. I felt his acceptance, his forgiveness. But that confession towards you, that put flesh on it. It made it real. And you could have rejected me. You could have ended the relationship and you had every right to. And I would have had to work through that. But my gosh, was it so liberating. It was so real that you accepted me and wanted to spend the rest of your life with me after fully knowing me. I've never totally won those things. I've never been fully known before. It was a terrifying proposition. And yet it was the most life-changing thing I've ever done in my life. The hardest, most life-changing thing I've ever done. So what we're talking about on this sixth pillar here is it's about creating a shared narrative of hope. When you've been through such a devastating experience like infidelity, it's really easy to get caught in a negative cycle. But when you have a shared, compelling vision and you have this bucket list of things you want to experience together in your life, that pulls you forward, not backwards. It gives you something to strive for, something to look forward to, something to work towards together as a couple. It shows that you both see, all right, this future is worth investing in. So let's get to work.
When you discover infidelity, there's a period of grieving. And most times, infidelity can cause a coupleship to separate and divide. But it doesn't have to be that way. The infidelity can bring your coupleship together and you guys partner and become a power couple with a common enemy, and the common enemy being sex addiction. Not fighting against each other, but fighting for each other with a shared goal and mission. And that's really how I define turning pain into purpose. So step 7 is the willingness to do individual healing work. If you feel the need to control his recovery, then you're not ready for this step.
This is a big one. And this applies to both the addict and the betrayed partner. For me, as the addict, it meant that I needed to take full responsibility for my recovery. It wasn't about doing it for you. It wasn't about doing it for our relationship, though those were very strong motivating factors. It had to be ultimately about doing it for me because I wanted to be a different person and offer you a different life and a different reality.
And for me as the betrayed partner, this was a massive paradigm shift. My initial instinct was to try and control every aspect of your recovery, to know what you were doing, where you were, who you were with, what you were thinking. I thought if I just controlled enough, I could prevent future pain. But what I learned, that my need for control was actually keeping me stuck. I've never shared this on a podcast before. This is a tough one. But I went back and I read journal entries after discovery. And looking back on that, I realized that I made you and your recovery my higher power. I put everything into a flawed person
Hmm.
and I couldn't move forward. What I should have been giving to God, my higher power, I was giving to you. And it controlled so much of my emotional response, how I showed up, my ability to do self-care, my ability to manage my own emotions. And I just recently discovered that. And when I did, I just cried so much. It was such a revelation, but it was so difficult to see that I was turning to a person to give me wholeness. And that same person was the person who caused so much devastation and destruction.
Hmm. And your experience with that is all too common. We've seen that so many times in our recovery community with the betrayed partners. So many of them, you called it higher power.
Mm,
So many of them make the management of his recovery their addiction,
yeah,
their
their
compulsion,
priority.
their obsession, and they can't let it go. And therefore they're not really focusing on their own healing. And I don't mean to say his side of the street, her side of the street, that nonsense. That's not what I'm talking about here. But it's trying to navigate a ship from the shore. You can yell directions all you want from the shore, but you're not on the boat. You're not on the boat of my recovery. I'm not in the boat of your recovery. You need to be the captain of your own vessel, your own recovery, and I need to be the captain of mine. I don't need to rely upon you to manage my recovery, to find a therapist, to find meetings to go to. We see this so much. She's trying to be the captain of his ship, and he's just passively along for the ride, and he's not really recovering, and she's not focusing on her own recovery. And they're both stuck as a result.
I think part of that was, you were self-deceived. And so I felt like it was my mission to fix you. But my true healing needed to involve me processing my own trauma, grieving the loss of the relationship that I thought I had, and rebuilding my sense of self outside of your action. It meant learning to trust my own intuition again and setting boundaries that protected me, not just you, but me and our coupleship. When I stopped trying to control you, I finally had the energy to focus on myself. When I stopped trying to be your fixer, I could fix the blind spots that I hadn't seen for so long. This was the hardest but most freeing step for me as the betrayed partner. Letting go and letting you either fly or fall, because I had to realize I'm going to be okay no matter what. I will land on my feet. I am going to make it through this. I've been through hard times before, and this is just another rock in the path that I'm going to have to navigate getting around.
So that takes us to point number 8, which Jacqueline has already mentioned, but now we just want to really solidify it. And that is, you've got to establish a positive regard for each other. And what we mean by that, and what Jacqueline alluded to, was we've got to have this mindset that we are a couple, we are a team, and that we have a common enemy, and the enemy is not each other. The enemy is the sex addiction. And so there's this mental shift that happens where you shift from being adversaries to allies.
I can remember for so long, I felt like you saw me as the enemy when I am fighting for our coupleship, or you saw me as the victim, or you saw yourself as the victim. And we got caught up in this really painful dynamic. But at some point, we both had to make a conscious decision to shift that perspective. Like, we can be fighting against each other, or we can be fighting together against a culprit. And I'd much rather be your partner fighting against the common evil than us fighting against each other. Because honestly, we were just on this continual hamster wheel of me finding fault in you, me feeling like you saw me as the enemy. Anything that I said would promote some sort of passive aggressive, or you felt attack on your character. And it was anything but that.
Yeah, and what I don't want to convey in any way is that I have no responsibility in this. It was the addict. It was the addiction that did this. It was the addiction that
Oh gosh.
stole our lives and ruined our lives. And how dare he? And like he's some other external thing from me. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm not trying to remove responsibility for my choices and my behavior.
I think another positive aspect of implementing this was assuming positive intent. So if I'm giving feedback or insight on something, assume that I have positive intent for our coupleship. And this is where the Gottmans, the four horsemen of the apocalypse, come into play: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. We had to actively work to dismantle those patterns in our communication. Contempt, especially, was a killer. It's like poison for the relationship. When you see your partner with contempt, you're essentially saying, I'm better than you. And that breeds resentment and distance. And another caveat that actually you brought into the equation was getting rid of absolutes. So you always do this. You never listen. Never, always. Those we completely eradicated from our vocabulary because it was typically used in a very negative, demeaning context.
Yeah, and when those resentments show up, and they will show up, you have to actively pursue gratitude, which dispels and offsets the resentment. So it's me actively looking for the good in you, and you finding the good in me, even when it's hard, even when there's a lot of pain going on. It means appreciating all the effort that you're doing. It means acknowledging your pain and not dismissing it or minimizing it. It's about choosing to believe in each other's potential and inherent goodness and the capacity for you to heal and the capacity for me to change, to experience transformation.
When you operate from a place of positive regard, you can approach challenges as a team. Instead of, you did this to me, it becomes, how can we overcome this together? It's a powerful shift that transformed the entire dynamic of the relationship. Now, that doesn't negate the pain and the triggers that I'm going through, because those are very much still there. The power couple dynamic doesn't say, well, we're just going to dismiss your feelings and your triggers and forget about it. The power couple dynamic actually cultivates new boundaries, new safeguards that you both implement and you both live by to protect the coupleship. Number 9, emotional intimacy through empathy.
So this is where we realized, or I realized, that it wasn't enough to just move away from the negative behaviors and the abusive behaviors. I needed to be moving towards something to replace that, actively starting to build something beautiful for our future. And the biggest skill gap for me was empathy. Learning empathy was incredibly difficult. I'm still enrolled in that university, trying to deepen my empathy muscles. My addiction had numbed me to my own emotions, let alone the emotions of others and your emotions. So I had to learn to truly listen to your pain. And I'm not talking about just with my ears, but to listen with my heart and to try to step into your skin and experience your reality.
And for me, sharing my pain in a way that you could receive it was also a learning process. So we used tools like the Imago dialogue, which provided a structured way to communicate and ensure that both of us felt heard and understood. It's about mirroring what you hear, validating their feelings, and then empathizing. It removes the guesswork and makes the communication safe.
We already mentioned about how we did check-ins as part of our daily routine, but I had to change my mindset on that. Initially, I saw it as a hoop to jump through, a box to check. And then I began to realize that this is one of the most important vehicles we have for building emotional intimacy, that you're inviting me to connect. You're inviting me to be vulnerable and to be seen and to be known. And so we really started to go deeper with that, with sharing genuine feelings. What you're really great about is you don't judge. If I share a struggle, if I share an emotion, first of all, you wait 24 hours before there's any questions or any reactivity. And that really promotes psychological safety for me, because being vulnerable, my limbic system tells me, don't do that. That is risky. That is danger. You better stop. And so you've been helpful in your psychological safety that you've created for me to be able to practice something that I needed a lot of reps in if I was going to get skilled at this, comfortable with this, overcome fear and reservation around it. So the transparency level has gotten a lot deeper, where I talk about my struggles. I talk about any temptations that I had and how I navigated those temptations when they showed up. And so it's become about consistent, open communication for us.
It has. And there's a critical piece here, and that is do not allow resentments to seep in. So another podcast that we've done is talking about resentment. The opposite of resentment is gratitude. And when you start peeling back the layers, you'll find that resentment is so toxic in a relationship. It quietly erodes trust and connection. For the betrayed partner, this means actively processing your pain and communicating it rather than letting it fester. For the addict, it means taking responsibility and making amends when necessary, as soon as possible. I'm not a bottler by nature. I don't bottle my emotions. I am someone who is very verbal, open. I tell you how I'm feeling. I'm very connected. I don't shy away from that. My survival response, we know, is fight. So there's not a lot of festering for me, but maybe someone who has a survival response of flight or fawn could bottle up some of the stress, the anxiety, painful feelings. Bottling up those emotions is definitely breeding ground for resentment, because like you are flight. And so not communicating how you feel, and maybe it's something that I said, but you misinterpret, can really help cultivate a ton of resentment that you have towards me that are not based on facts.
You know, part of what had to happen for you and I to overcome some hurdles and really cultivate emotional intimacy with each other was for us to see each other fully and to understand each other's pain. That this applies to both sides. Obviously, I needed to learn to see your pain that you're experiencing as a direct result of my actions. And I had to take responsibility for that without going into shame. If we were going to
1000%.
be emotionally intimate, what you needed to see in me was some of the pain that drove me to my addictive behavior. I like what Gabor Mate says. I love the quote. He says, I don't ask why the addiction. I ask why the pain. And he says that because behind any addictive behavior, there are some deep core wounds in that person. And that is not in any way to excuse their behavior, but it does help explain it. So in the same way that I needed to see you as a person and embrace your pain, because I caused it, you also had to look at me and see me as a person, not a monster, and to embrace the pain, the wounding that I had that was highly influential in the genesis of my addictive behavior.
Yeah, hearing it, attesting to it is, I think, helpful for betrayed partners. But I do want to make just one call out, and this is just me. But I often hear some of the addicts justify addiction because of trauma-filled childhood. And while, yes, it's great insight to know why did you do these things, and I appreciate them because we can heal and you can heal those old wounds. It does not negate, it is not an excuse for you to hurt someone else. Because most people experience trauma in their childhood, but that doesn't give anyone the right to hold that card and say, hey, you need to give me a hall pass. You need to get over this. You need, you know, you need to forgive me and just move forward because I had a really tough childhood. That's not how this is going to work. And if that's the mindset that the addict has, you're going to stay on this hamster wheel because she is never going to feel heard. She is not going to feel understood. And she is going to feel like you aren't taking responsibility for your actions. We all have baggage and we can own our baggage, but excuses hinder growth.
Yeah, I think in a very real way, in order for you and I to be emotionally intimate, I needed to be able to share some of that wounding from my childhood and not feel like I was going to be judged or rejected for it.
Mm-hmm.
What I needed to be careful of was to recognize that the trauma that I experienced as a child did not cause any of my behaviors. There's no causation here. It was a choice. But to recognize that it contributed. That trauma is a risk factor towards addictive behavior. It doesn't absolve the responsibility or the choice that's involved. There are others who experience very similar trauma to what I experienced as a child, and they didn't choose a compulsive addictive behavior. So there's no way I can claim that that A caused B. That's not fair or accurate. And that's not me taking ownership. However, if we come back to emotional intimacy, if I'm going to share that deep pain with you, it's only going to be in the realm of psychological safety. If I'm using it as an excuse for what I did, you're not going to receive that. But if you completely dismiss my pain and you're not able to see the pain and acknowledge the pain, then I don't feel safe to share future pain with you. So it's an important component.
That's a balance.
Empathy being applied from both sides, seeing the person, embracing the pain. All right, so finally, top 10, here's number 10, arguably the most foundational trait out of all 10. It's a shared belief that healing is possible. You have to believe it to achieve it. If you don't believe it, you're not going to put in the work. You're not going to be able to overcome the obstacles. You won't have the courage for the painful conversations. And trust me, there's going to be a lot of those painful, difficult conversations. You're not going to push through the inevitable setbacks. You have to have a fundamental belief. Healing is possible.
Healing is possible, but it's not going to come easily. When we're in the depths of despair, it can feel like there's no way out. The pain is so overwhelming, and the future can seem so bleak. But sometimes there's a flicker of hope. In order to have a belief that healing is possible, you both have to be committed to doing the work, especially for the addict. You also need to acknowledge that the betrayed partner has the harder road. And for the man, you need to show up in ways that you've never shown up to a person in your life.
You know, for me, what was so helpful early on, we decided we wanted to give back. We wanted to try and turn this pain into purpose. And we could not find a community of couples where there was hope and encouragement. We found a few groups of couples, and they were not hopeful or encouraging. So we decided to start our own group on Sunday nights. And eventually we started having a few couples come that were further along in recovery. And we started seeing couples who were doing well. And there was help. and there was happiness and there was joy. And I started to feel a glimpse of hope for my own recovery and for our relationship. And it wasn't always a strong, unwavering belief. I had doubts and setbacks at times, especially in the early days. Sometimes it was just this tiny ember of hope, and we had to tend to that flame, but it was there.
So even when my emotions screamed otherwise, I would reflect into who I knew you to be. And it was about trusting the process and trusting that you were genuinely committed to change, not just through words, but more so with actions.
This shared belief that we're talking about, number 10, this shared belief that there is the hope of healing. This is the trait that fuels the other 9. When you have that shared belief that healing is possible, it gives you the courage to do the first thing, which is a full disclosure. It gives you the strength to communicate when the conversations are really difficult. This shared belief is what gives you the determination to do your individual work and your couple's work. It's kind of like this silent agreement between the two of you that says, we're in this together, and we're fighting for a future that we both believe is worth fighting for.
If you take nothing out of today, I hope you take a sense of hope. We did everything wrong in the beginning. Trust me. If there was a list of what not to do after discovery, we checked that mark not once, not twice, but probably 3 times. I promise you healing is possible if you both are investing in it. It's not a fairy tale, it's a reality, and we get to live it. It is hard and it can be messy and sometimes excruciating, but it's worth it.
So there you have it. Those are the 10 key traits that in our own journey, we've identified that are absolutely essential for couples to heal and thrive even after infidelity. Everything from the painful but necessary act of full disclosure to the empowering belief that healing is possible. Each of these 10 traits play a critical role in rebuilding your trust and your intimacy.
Remember, this isn't a linear process. You'll take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. There will be good days and hard days. But the consistent application of these principles, fueled by a genuine desire to heal, will lead you to a place of profound connection and a relationship that is stronger and more resilient than you can ever imagine. I promise.
So we want to leave you with this message of hope. If we can do it, you can do it. It takes courage, commitment, a willingness to do hard work, often uncomfortable work. But on the other side of that work is a relationship that's built on authenticity, trust, and a love that you could say has been forged in fire.
That's a good one.
That's what I feel.
For all the listeners, you are not alone in your journey. There are so many resources and support and people who understand what you're going through. There's a lot more today than there was when we first started out, that's for sure. Reach out for help. Join a support group. You can contact us for coaching. Listen to a podcast like ours. There's a lot of other great podcasts out there with awesome tools that you can refer to. Take the first step towards healing.
So we believe in you. We really do. And it's an honor to walk alongside you on this path.
Until next time, remember to focus on yourself, invest in your recovery, fight for your healing, and for your relationship.
Choose hate.
What?
Here we go. Choose.
What?
Okay, for real, I'm tired.
Okay.
Choose
Joy's recovery. What are you saying?
Choose joy.
Joy
Choose-
recovery.
Choose joy.
Choose joy.
Joyrecovery.com.
No. Choose joy.
Choose joy.
We got to get better about
1,
our
2,
sync.
3.
Choose joy.
See you next time.
That wraps up another episode of Joy Recovery Radio. We hope our conversation today brought you clarity, comfort, or a new perspective on your journey. Remember, healing is possible, and you don't have to walk this path alone. To learn more about how we can support you, visit us at joy-recovery.com. There, you'll find information about our individual and couples coaching practice designed to provide tailored support for both addicts and betrayed partners. You can also explore our various online groups, offering safe and confidential spaces for connection, shared experience, and growth. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, choose joy.